As usual, the participants foregathered for the start in Hyde Park in the centre of London. The famous Bentley boy of the 1930s, Sammy Davis, was one of the first away in his 1897 Leon Bollé tricycle. Jack Kelmsley of the RAC was aboard an 1896 Lutzmann. And stuttering away from the start line was Stedman's 1899 International Benz dogcart. By 1900, New Orleans were fitting central steering so that either passenger could conduct. Despite the apparent sophistication of 2 cylinders, this 1900 Napier could still manage the shakes. Eligible vehicles for this annual run go from the earliest 19th century machines to those built in 1904. Entrants were well underway by the time they reached Parliament Square. There was an early breakdown on Westminster Bridge, but a crew in a very modern Lotus were there to render assistance. One of the last to leave were the Pierpont family in their 1904 Moors. Lucas's 9 horsepower 1904 James and Brown had 4 up. Bothman's 10 horsepower Norfolk, which despite its name was in fact a car built in Cleckheaton, Yorkshire by the Blackburn Company. Balked by modern traffic was Leslie Briggs in his single-cylinder Humber tandem, the passenger riding exposed in the front. A similar machine for R.H. Stothert. Approaching Streatham, we came across a much grander Humber, Mason's 10 horsepower swing seat tonneau, followed by a Giant Jupiter and an Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire. Making good time into Croydon was Neil Beardsall's 2-seater Humberette. Bennett's 1904 15 horsepower Panhard Levasseur. Not a Stanley steamer, but George Schieffelin's Prescott steamer, Losing Pressure. Alongside the old Croydon Aerodrome, we came across an appropriately Surrey-topped de Dion-Bouton. Hugh Hunter was going very well in his 1904 6 horsepower Siddeley. All on his own, with tiller steering, was Brown and his Orient buckboard runabout from America. Fully enclosed luxury for the Blackford's 1903 white steamer. Now they were climbing and crossing the North Downs. The Somerset firm of Stevens built cars for just 7 years, between 1898 and 1905. This car is still in the same family. Morris Bateman from Yorkshire pumped up the fuel pressure on his Renault. Arthur Tyler's 1899 Decouville. The de Dion-Bouton Brigade included Lord Montague of Beaulieu, founder of the wonderful new National Motor Museum. Punchers are just part of the fun for veteran motorists. As the cars rolled over the hills of the Downs, Brighton beckoned, and Commander Woolley's 1897 Daimler looked like it was going to make it. Perhaps not so certain was Mrs. Shuttleworth's 24 horsepower racing de Dietrich. But no such trouble for London's de Dion-Bouton. Davis's 1904 Peugeot was still going strong, along with Major Gardiner's 1902 Wolseley. But sadly abandoned lay the 1904 12 horsepower Siddeley. For some, there were some adjustments to be done before those final miles to Brighton could be covered. Meanwhile, Sammy Davis, the tortoise amongst these faster hares, was still rolling along. The problem fixed, time to swing that engine over again. Mason had managed to keep his 10 horsepower Humber going. Finally, it's time to go again. Give way to approaching Riley tricars. Signal your intentions and go. Full speed ahead and apparently standing room only on Bennett's Panhard Levasseur. I could have sworn I had someone in front when we set off. I never saw a Standard 8 overtake anything before. After hours on the road, but covering only just over 50 miles, these intrepid automobilists were relieved to see the Brighton boundary. Lewis Evans' 1896 Benz had been one of the first to leave London. the Mayor of Brighton arrived on Madeira Drive in his Austin shear line to welcome the runners to the finish. As usual, the crowd lining the Regency Esplanade was immense. First home was Sir Clive Edwards on his 1900 7-horsepower Norfolk. Behind them, our friends the Stephens, in the family of Voiturette. Then the finishers started to stream into Brighton, with Sloane's 1902 Benz displaying a nifty front wing. Air Chief Marshal Sir Alec Croyton took time off from running the Air Force. Basil Devonport, of hill climbing in his GN Spider fame, obviously delights in skimpy machinery. Wilfred Andrews from the RAC.
Now, sir, there's a lot of illegal parking with some very odd-looking cars about today. What can I do?
Time then to let everything cool down a touch before the journey home. Three-wheelers obviously didn't come with a reverse gear. Number 112 was James Alday in his 1903 Gladiator. As ever, Autosport magazine's technical editor and well-known BBC motor racing commentator John Bolster arrived in his beloved 1903 Panhard Levasseur. No problems with reverse for John, he even remembered the handbrake. The 1904 James and Brown. They built their cars in Hammersmith, London, between 1901 and 1910. Peter Hampton's wonderful 60-horsepower Mercedes was the most powerful car in the event, with its 9.2-litre capacity. This was the type of car the German factory ran in the 1903 Gordon Bennett Challenge Cup race, and certainly was the car to beat in the early 1900s. So, with some of the latecomers still arriving, it was time for others to start making tracks for home. At last, the tortoise arrived. Sammy Davis, of course, used to much more speed, remembering his Bentley days at Le Mans. Johnson's Star. Star was one of those makes that came from Wolverhampton. This firm was relatively long-lived, surviving through the First World War and building cars as late as 1932. Another runner showing the signs of a long day was Noel Birdsall's Humberette. The Humberette was Britain's first really popular light car. Moore's Benz was seen reversing with a broken spring, followed by a 1903 Renault 10 horsepower Laundelette. Rolls-Royce didn't start manufacturing cars until 1904, and this one here, run by Oliver Langton, was the only one in the field. And so an interesting and very different day closed.